ברוכים הבאים לדרך עם S.B.R.T, מפגש עם אנשים מעניינים, מעוררי השראה. ויש לי את הכבוד ואת העונג לארח את גיישה דומצ'או, נזיר בודהיסטי בכיר, מתרגל מהמעגל הקרוב של הדאלי במנזר הטיבטי בדראמסלה בהודו. גיישה דומצ'או מתרגל וחי הדרך הבודהיזם, מלמד בודהיזם בלימודים גבוהים, וחי את דרכו הרוחנית. בין השאר היה לי העונג ללמוד מדיטציה ולהיות תחת משנתו, הדרכתו, ואני כל כך שמח לארח אותו היום. So, hello, Geisha Domchao. How are you today?
I'm great, thank you. Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
Manishma.
Such a...
Manishma means how are you, right?
Manishma, it's mean, yeah, how are you?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, I'm very good. I'm very happy. Good day. How are you?
I'm doing great.
Yeah.
What do you call it? Toda Baha.
You've been in Shuka Carmel, so you know it's a good day.
Yeah, true. Lovely day. And also, what do we say? It's like good day. And also, you're fortunate. Why? Because we are breathing and we are enjoying.
And we just here, alive. So
yeah.
It's an interesting saying, because I think later on maybe we'll get to that. What happened if you suffer and you're alive? So you have to say thank you for that. But maybe
actually, there's a great Indian Buddhist master called Shantideva. What he said was, suffering is not a bad thing. Why? Because by knowing the suffering, then you will work for it, and to come out of the suffering, you will work for the path for the enlightenment, liberation, or happiness, whatever it may be. So what do we say is, as long as you don't know what the suffering is, you won't understand what the happiness is. Some people, they consider happiness itself as a suffering. Let's say, like if you take the example of Bdaraamsala people, we complain that Bdaraamsala is too hot. Then when we go down to Delhi, what we say is, my back hometown, Bdaraamsala is heaven. Like the same way, the students like who comes from the West, they complain that the network is not good. Why? Because the 5G and all these things is still not good. When they comes to India or like Africa, then they realize that some of the places, they doesn't have like even a 3G, right? So they just consider, I'm privileged, I'm happy. So they choose, then they realize and they know what the contentment is. So that's why suffering itself is not a bad thing. Through the suffering, we will work on the happiness.
So if you being aware to your suffer and you treat it as a tool to make progress or to work through it, then...
True. When you get the suffering, there are two things. Either you run away or you face it.
So I think we're going to dive into that. So maybe start by explaining me or our listener, what is Geisha? Like what's the meaning of your title?
The Geisha, let's say like in the Tibetan Buddhism, His Holiness the Dalai Lama always tells the Tibetan kings, they are very selective. Around the 7th century, the first Buddhism came from India. So His Holiness the Dalai Lama always tells Tibetan kings are very selective. As for the wisdom is concerned, we have copied from India. As for the food is concerned, we have copied from China. As for the clothes is concerned, we have copied from Mongolia. So some of the Tibetan kings, let's say the 38th king, he married with a Chinese princess, and also the 41st king, his wife, I think his mother is also a Chinese, but they decided to adopt the Indian Buddhism rather than the Chinese Buddhism. The Buddhism actually originated from India, then it flourished to the different parts of the Asia, like China, Cambodia, Burma, Thailand. But at that time, Tibet, we have got our own religion called Pon religion. It's a old religion. Then later, around the end of the 7th century and the beginning of the 8th century, the Indian Buddhist masters, they came to Tibet, and the Buddhism started flourishing. Then, as for the Buddhism, the Tibetan Buddhism, we have 4 different traditions, Saigya, Kaikyu, Nyingma, Gelu, like that. So it's a seed from a single, a fruit from a single seed. So different disciples having different experiences then came with a different traditions. So as for me, our institution, we practice non-sectarian. So the Geisha is a kind of a title, like PhD, equivalent to PhD. So some people, what they think is just study 1 year, 2 years, then that's it. But in reality, the Geisha, there are 4 different types of Geisha. The highest one is called the Geisha Harampa. The minimum, you have to study 16 years. And all these 16 years, every year we have got an examination. Then after completing the 16 years, again you have to give the 5 years of examination that you have studied for the last 16 years. So totally, to get a PhD degree in Buddhist philosophy, it takes minimum 16 years, maximum 21 years. So when I finished my Geisha degree, that day, during the day, when I met my teacher, he said, "Oh, Tamche, Geisha, it's a very difficult thing to get. And once you get it, don't think that now I'm done. Now it's just a beginning. You have to study more and you have accumulate virtues more." Then in the evening, my mom, my late mother, at that time she was in Bodh Gaya where the Buddha attained enlightenment. And I called her, "Mom, it's done." And I was expecting, "My son, I'm so fortunate. I'm so happy for you." And she just asked me, "What?" "The Geisha degree," I said. And what she told me, "Don't be arrogant and be down to earth like your teacher." And she kept the phone down and I get shocked. What happened? Then the next day I told to my teacher that when I told yesterday night, I just called to my mom and she said like that, "Don't be arrogant. Be down to earth like your teacher, like you." And she said, "Yes, your mom is wise." So Geisha is equivalent to kind of like PhD.
So it's actually a degree that symbolizes or says that you had a mass of learning in Buddhism.
Yes. So that's why the Buddha, what he said was, "Don't follow me ignorantly, blindly by saying that I'm a great teacher, like the goldsmith, melt the gold, tear the gold. If it's a pure gold, keep it." The same way, they analyze on my teachings. If it's helping you, practice it. Otherwise, forget it. So it clearly shows that Buddhism has nothing to do with the dogmatic. It's something to do with the studies, right? So logic. So that's why
it's not just practice, it's
yes,
analyzing as well.
Yes. First, during the 8th century, the Indian Buddhist master called Kamalashla, when he had a debate along with the Chinese Buddhist master, both of them were invited by the Tibetan king. So the Chinese Buddhist master, what he said was just go and meditate, just block the conceptual thoughts, think nothingness. But the Indian Buddhist master, what he said was, Kamalashla, what he said was, this is not the way. First, to realize, you have to understand. To understand, you have to listen. Once you listen, you try to understand. Once you understand, then try to realize. Then he wrote a book called The Path to Middling Stages of the Path to Enlightenment, yes. Middling Stages to the Path to Enlightenment. So the Tibetan king, he was very much moved by the Indian Buddhist master's wisdom. Then the Tibetan king decided to adopt the Buddhism from India rather than the China.
I think when I study with you a little bit, your meditation or the way you talked about meditation was different than what I experienced. So when I experience something that is more oriented in the Vipassana way, it was more listening and anchoring yourself to a specific sensation. Of course, there are different traditions, but was my experience and my specialization in meditation. And I felt your meditation is more agonist in the way that you are kind of like trying to go into the source of thoughts, emotions, and so on, and kind of like more analytic in a way.
So in a meditation, there are two different types of meditation. What do we call is analytical meditation and the single-pointedness meditation. So now these days in the West, as well in the East, like everyone is trying to, let's say like earlier times, the meditation, it seems like it's only for the spiritual people. Now these days, the doctors, they also tells you to do the meditation, but they don't tell you how to do it. And they just tells the importance of it.
Yeah.
Then
deep breathing.
Yes. Then the people, they just get confused and they just try to look for the meditation center. Now these days, you find like lots of meditation centers.
And that's okay as well, no?
Yeah, it's true. Like as long as you get the, what do we call is the mental tranquility, right? Mental tranquility, mental peace. There's no such as like, yes, this is the absolute. This is the only path. So let's say if you want to get to the Tel Aviv from the Jerusalem, there's a air, there's a road, there's a sea, there's a train, you can walk. So you can't say that, train is the solution. Last time when I came to the Tel Aviv, I came by train. This morning we got late. We came by bus. Last time
Israeli bus.
Yeah, like last time we came by train. So we can't say, okay, now this is the only thing, right? So as long as you get the mental peace, that's fine. Now in our tradition, let's say meditation, so in a Tibetan, what do we call is gom, sagad ganaro goma gom. Then later on, it should be gom, ganaro goma gom. So what it says is the concentration, awareness, if we should be, in English, literally, if we translate, it would be to be familiar with. Now, in most of the centers, they teaches you focusing only on the breathing, just block the conceptual thoughts like that. But this is the kind of like to stabilize one's mind. Like this is the one of the best technique to focus on the breathing.
To stabilize the mind.
Yes. To stabilize the mind, there are various means. Like one with the thinking, focusing on the breathing. Then second, on the visualizing on an image of an object. Then third, it's more of like in an advanced level, visualizing oneself as a deity. So I need to tell to the students again and again, breathing, like focusing and doing meditation only on the breathing, it helps. Like what we want is like, and also we being a human being, in the economic, what do they say is like human desires are unlimited, right? You have the iPhone, let's say like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now you want the latest one. You want to update, right? Like the same way, I need to tell to the students like, now you should also update your meditation too. Do you want to get stuck only on the breathing? Let's say like I'm the iPhone 6. So you want to be iPhone 6 there forever? They say no. I want iPhone latest. Okay, so like the same way, yes, guiding meditation and focusing on the breathing, it's very good. Now trying to update, right, your mind, your meditation, like that. So in the centers, they teaches you only on focusing on the breathing, but there are meditation on love, meditation on kindness, meditation on anger, meditation on compassion, and meditation on emptiness, and all these things. So His Holiness the Dalai Lama, he goes to bed around 6 and 7 in the evening and wakes up 3 in the morning and does 5 hours of meditation, like that. And out of 5 hours of meditation, the 3 session is on death meditation that he always tells us. So they are different meditation, not only focusing on the breathing, anger, hatred, love, impermanence. First, analyzing, introspection. That's what his honest divides Buddhist science, Buddhist philosophy, Buddhist religion. So on the Buddhist science, we talk about cosmology, neurology, quantum physics, modern psychology. So Buddhist science, it looks for the fact. And Buddhist philosophy, it looks for the possibility. Okay, if this is a fact, and is there any other possibilities? Yes, these are the possibilities. Now these two, it's more of like analytical meditation. Then comes Buddhist religion. Then it's after developing a firm conviction through the studying, through the analyzing, then coming, yes, this is it. Single pointedness meditation. So it's not necessary to do a meditation. It's not necessary that it should be like a Buddhist. Everybody can do it.
So maybe we're going to have some time to go back to the meditation and some tip, but I'm going to start asking you some question about you. So what make you choose your path, your spiritual path or your religious path?
It's a top secret. Actually, in Tibet, let's say the Buddhism started around the 7th century, around the end of 7th century and the beginning of the 8th century. So the Tibetan, Indian Buddhist master called Shantarakshita, to test whether the Tibetan can become a monk or not, first he ordained only 7 Tibetan people as a monk. Then slowly and gradually, when Buddhism started flourishing in Tibet, then to have a monk in your family, it become a kind of like a status. So if you have only one child, they will also make the child as a monk. Now coming in the diaspora, in exile, now it's more of like giving the decision to their own children. So as for me, my father's brother, my uncles, they are monks, and they from the very teenage, I see them as a kind of like role model. I used to visit them in the monasteries, so I became more and more friendly with the monks. Then I just thought of becoming a monk. Then my brothers and sisters, they told me like, first you should study, then later on you can become a monk. They just thought like, I will change up my mind. Then after studying for a long period, then I just went to the school, went to the college. After finishing that, then they stick to my mind. They stick to your own aim. Then I became a monk. So they are the most like kind of like influencer.
So you just saw them, you saw the monks and you saw your uncle, and like the way they wore made you feel, I wanna be like
them.
that.
Yeah.
How would you describe them? What were they for you?
They are very peaceful and
authentic,
and they are very peaceful, loving, compassionate.
And you just felt that energy. Maybe we don't even know how to describe it as teenagers, kids, or even adult. But you just feel this presence of somebody, and we say,
yes. And also at the same time, when we are in school, like almost all the teachings, our culture and tradition, it's very much mixed up with the religion. So like every now and then, Like even when we make sentences, it's something to do with the spiritual. So I just the things that we have learned in the school and all these things, and I see them like they are the one like who are practicing all these things. Then got like a little bit they moved, and I just thought like, yeah, I should be like them. Do you know the Lion King?
The Lanky?
The Lion King.
The Lion King, yeah, the Lion King.
Yes, the Mowgli in that one. When the Mowgli, when he was kidnapped by the monkeys,
Yeah.
and they're "Subu-du-bu-du-du." I want to be like you. Yeah.
But can you maybe share with us some of your shaping experience, the experience that shaped you in that part of your...
I see. So as for me, when I was in the school, I'm pretty much reserved, occupied. And I don't talk to anybody as long as it is so much necessary. Then once I finished the school and the college, then when I joined the monastery, His Holiness the Dalai Lama keeps on saying, and our first fundamental idea should be, we all are same human being, right? Oneness of human being. That's if we just skip the secondary as the fundamental, like I'm a Tibetan, I'm a monk, I'm a boy. So you just keep make a barrier between you and them. And this is the one thing helped me a lot, that we should be, first fundamental should be, we all are same human being. Then second, in the Buddhist philosophy, there are 5 major subjects. The second one is on the Madhyamika, the middle way approach, the middle way school philosophy. That helped me a lot. Why? Because most of us, we consider appearance itself as a reality. Right?
What we experience, that's the reality.
No, what this one. We consider appearance itself as a reality.
Appearance, what appear to me.
Yeah.
This is the reality. I see, I touch.
Yes.
This is what's real.
Yes. So in the Buddhist philosophy, it's what do we say is letting the 5 blind people to touch to an elephant. So everyone, they will say, will give an answer, but no one has a clear picture of the elephant.
Yeah.
Yes. So like the same way in my mind, like I'm too much cautious about myself, like what the other people will think, what the other people will say.
Yeah.
So I'm pretty much reserved, and when you walk in the public, when 2 people are talking, when you just see them, and we just make up our mind, like, oh, they might be talking about me. What the hell I did? So when they laugh, are they laughing at me? So we just make up lots of mind, right? So our teacher always used to tell us, like, don't trouble unless trouble troubles you. Right? So with the mental projection, like mental conceptual thoughts, we create lots of things. So Madhyamika, this particular the approach, philosophy, helped me a lot. So yeah, and also the perfection wisdom, the Prajnaparamita, that's what we say in the Parji in the Sanskrit. So it helps me how to you should be in a path like that.
Yeah, like centered you to this way that you have to go or need to go.
Yes.
Need to practice. Do you have a specific experience or something that you can say, that time over there or that experience over here or that really shaped me as a person, as a practitioner?
Yes, the fundamental, or let's say the foundation of the Buddhism is the Four Noble Truths. The truth of suffering, truth of origin of suffering, the truth of cessation, and the truth of path. So in the beginning, like whenever I have a problem, I used to think that, oh, this is it. So I am the victim. And from the way this is coming from, I don't...
Why does it happen to me?
What does it happen to me? I never try to introspect. So then, after studying the Four Noble Truths, then most of us, what we think is there's only one suffering. But in reality, the Buddha, he has divided the suffering into three types, like suffering of change, and the suffering of condition. Then with these, what he said was that suffering doesn't come automatically. It should have a cause. Then comes the truth of origin of suffering. And is there cessation that to come out of the problem? Then by doing a prayer, you won't be able to overcome the suffering. There should be a path. Then there's another book called, there's another Indian great Buddhist master called Shantideva. He wrote a book called The Way of Bodhisattva. And his Holiness the Dalai Lama always tells this is one of the best psychology book. So in that one, he says, if there's a remedy for a problem, why you should worry? If there's no remedy for a problem, there's no point of worrying. Right? So he's very much practical and realistic. So this particular book also helped me a lot, shaped me.
So when you read it, you kind of had an experience of...
Yeah, one time, this one, when I went to New Mexico. When I went to the New Mexico with one of my students, during the spring break. Then the next day, I just realized that I've misplaced my earphone. Then we called to the airport, did you see any earphone like that? Then it's right after the airport, we went to the mall. We called to the mall. Then after that, the next day, early in the morning, we went to the park for a walk. I also went over there. So it keeps me, reminds me of that particular stanza of the Shantideva. If there's a remedy for a problem, why you should worry? If there's no remedy for a problem, there's no point of worrying. Then I just thought, no, okay, let it go. Then again, at the same time, the Frozen song, let it go, let it go. So it comes in my mind, when you just think of it, it just gives you 5 minutes of pleasure, happiness. Then again, suffering.
The thought is going on, suffering.
The unhappy feeling comes back, regret comes back. I should have kept it properly. Then after a week, when I went back to the college, when I opened the door, it was on my bed. So it reminds me of teacher again, say, don't trouble unless trouble troubles you. And also, the same way, for my personal thinking, my teacher and my father and my mother, now they all are dead. And I didn't meet my teacher at the last minute. When I have to move, leave him from South India to, I have to leave from South India to Dharmsala. Then after 2 days, I just received a phone call that he passed away. And that's what my dad and mom, they just passed away in front of me, in front of my eyes. Then, all these teachings, I was just thinking, trying to put in practice, but it's very hard. That's why the Tibetan master, what he said was, my religion is kind and simple, but hard to practice. So I need to, when I teach the philosophies to the students and meditation to the students, I always need to ask them, the text that you are learning, are you learning to pass the exam? Or are you learning to give advice to someone else? Or are you learning for yourself to change? Right? So one time when one of my friends, when her mother passed away, she thinks that like she blame on herself. Like she just keeps on saying, if I haven't taken my mother down, then she might have been alive. Then she is having a lot of guilt and regret. Then her husband like tells me like, whenever I try to tell to her, she's the same person and she doesn't listen to me. Can you just talk to her? And I said, okay. Then she used to call me for like 1 hour, 2 hours. I just show the tolerance. She at that time like she was in Delhi. And one day I just called her like, oh, do you have a book called His Holiness, written by His Holiness, called Secular Ethics? Then she said yes. So almost for a week, first I taught her like that too on the phone, almost like 1 hour, 2 hours. Then after a week, I just realized like, why I'm reading for her? First I have to read for myself. And put it to practice. Yeah. So the spiritual like things that we are learning. Some people like Torah, Quran, Gita, whatever it may be, right? Bible, whatever it may be. Some people, they learn it as a kind of like an academic. It's good. Something is better than nothing. And some people, they learn it at the same way on the parallel level, they just try to put into practice. So what we think is, oh, this is an academic, I will practice after 10 years when I finish it. Then the people that tells you that, oh, I heard that he's such a learned person, but as an individual he's very aggressive and lots of ego like that. So the things that we learn, if we just put into practice, then you'll be the happiest person. Otherwise, it's just an academic knowledge.
I couldn't agree more. I can see it in martial art practice as well, that somebody invests so much time in being so sharp and accurate, and then he can be the most amazing warrior or fighter, but then something really lack as a human being. So you practice something, but you didn't practice that thing that should bring you from one place to another. And then you just build a tool, but nothing in that, tool. And then if that tool that you invest so much time in building, it's actually not giving you anything, because it's leaking. So if you just invest time in learning something just for the academic or just for the achievement, so actually you build a big vessel that is driven by a lot of ego, achievement.
True.
And then what can you put in it?
True.
So maybe the next question is, what is the main target of your practice? What do you want to achieve?
So in a life, so let's say the happiness, you want to have the happiness in your life. Now, happiness, what does the happiness means is kind of like happiness. They are different. There's no such kind of like absolute, right? So over here, the happiness means...
So there is no absolute happiness.
Yes. So let's say, as for the cooperative world, in the corporate world, more and more, they look more for the gross domestic product, right? But in the spiritual world, it's more of like gross domestic happiness. So one time when I was in the United States, like in college,
again, you color.
So like the teacher, the professor, like I was in her class and saying, "Oh, in the West we have developed so much in the material value, but back in the Tibet it's so poor." Like, and I almost like the word came up to my to the throat, but I didn't say anything. I thought of like telling her like in the Tibet, or happiness, the demarcation of happiness is measured by the gross domestic happiness, not by the gross domestic product. So over here, the happiness could be let's say short-term happiness and long-term happiness. So the happiness comes from the satisfaction. That's what we say. So the aim of our life is to be happy. And over here in the Kibbunim, I come over here to teach to the Kibbunim students. And the day before yesterday, when we had a class, I just asked them like, "Do you want to be happy?" They said, "Yes." And I asked them, "For how long?" And they said, "Forever." And I asked them, like, "By doing the prayer, will you get the happiness?" For the centuries, we have been doing prayers, right? So this prayers, the happiness doesn't come out from the prayers. It's a means of a tool. Yeah, it gives a pleasure. But the real happiness, it has to come from the within. So His Holiness the Dalai Lama always tells like, when we just have an agreement, the peace agreement, we release the dove, pigeon in the air. And it's not a peace, it's a freedom for the pigeon. Happiness has to come from the within, right? So our goal of our life is to be happy. And for that, like, one need to be work on it. So I need to tell to the students, the Charles Darwin, his evolution theory, what he said was like the survival of fit of the fittest. Now, survival of fit of the fittest, it's applicable only in the animal kingdom. One has to run to survive, and one has to chase to survive. But now in the human, it's more of like survival of compassion and kindness. If you have a compassion, if you have a kindness heart, automatically people will love you, right? No matter whether you are a religious-minded person or not. So
here in Israel, being with compassion or being empathy, it's a lot of the time we confuse it with being, a sucker. Because if you are letting go of something, or if you're like being compassionate to somebody can fool you, or you can just get fooled by somebody else. Or
That's true. That's why His Holiness says, like, when the mad dog rabies is coming to bite you, by saying that I'm compassion, this is the foolish way of showing compassion. Best thing is to run away. So, and what we call is the sixth perfection. So in the end, it's wisdom. So generosity with the compassion, tolerance and patience with the wisdom, and patience, the mindfulness with the wisdom, like that. So compassion has to develop not through the emotion, but through the logic. So that's why those people who try to develop the compassion through the emotion, it's like it won't last long. That's why the Emory University, the scientists, they have done a research. Emory University of America in Atlanta, Georgia, they have done a research on the medical student. So the medical student, the course is for 5 or 6 years, something. So first year, they are so compassion, so kindness. The second year, it drops down. Third year, drops down. Fourth year, drops down. Fifth year, drops down. I'm not talking about like everyone, but most of them.
Yeah.
So the thing is, what do they call is compassion fatigue. So compassion fatigue, like the same way, like when we go to the market, if you just see a poor person, a beggar, we just give a 5 shekel. Oh, he's such poor, like that. What a pity. We just give the 5 shekel. And the next day, when he comes, some change. What he will say? I gave you yesterday, right? Then on the 3rd day, I gave you already, right? On the 4th day, do something. Then on the 5th day, he's there, just avoid. So over here, you have developed the compassion through the emotion. So that's why in English, what do they say is, when you are happy, don't make too many promises. When you are angry, don't take too many decisions, right? Then developing a compassion with the logic, right? Thinking of interdependent, thinking of oneness, thinking of humanity, right? So with this, the compassion that you have developed, it will last long, right? So 2 ways of developing compassion, one through the logic, one through the emotion. Through the emotion, it doesn't last long. But with the logic, it lasts long.
So
with the wisdom.
With the wisdom, yeah. So what are the challenges that you encounter in your path? Did you had any breakdowns? Did you had any...
Yes, I've told you, one of the Tibetan masters said, my path is kind and simple, but hard to practice, right? So all the time, like, you need to keep in mind, assure mindfulness that I'm a monk, right? And also try to think of His Holiness teachings wherever you goes. So as for His Holiness the Dalai Lama, what he tells is like to keep your loved ones alive. Let's say who passed away, is to follow their advice. My teacher passed away, my father passed away, my mother passed away. Sometimes I also being a human being, right? They have an emotion too. So then I just think of like their advice and try to follow it, right? Yeah, so the most difficult is to show a mindfulness, right? To live in the present moment, like that. And you have like lots of ideas, lots of things that you want to learn, lots of things. But it's very difficult to fulfill all these wishes. So in one of the Little Buddha's movie with the canaries, yeah, in that one, what he says, God betrays the wishes of immortal man. Like that. So yeah, I have like lots of wishes, but it's very difficult to fulfill everything, right? So the hardest thing is to show a mindfulness.
To be in that moment, in this moment, without the understanding of all the things that you cannot achieve actually.
True. But for that, like, one need to walk.
To walk.
Yeah, you need to work hard to persuade it.
To work, yeah.
Yeah.
How much time do you invest in your spiritual practice or in this work that you're talking about? And like...
Trying as much as I can. As much as I can. Yeah. So my mom, to circumambulate, we need to walk from the clockwise. And one time, I just tried to walk from the anti-clockwise. Like, I'm a bit in a hurry. And my mom called me back, Tamche, come here. And I was like, what? And she told me like, oh, we have to go from clockwise. Don't think that there's a statue of Buddha only in the temple. In each house, every household, there's a statue of Buddha and the picture of His Holiness. So accumulation of a virtue is not only at one place. You can do it everywhere. So like, though my mom is uneducated, but she talks so wisely, right? So it's more of like, yeah, she's very wise. And sometimes like, this morning I was telling to David, like when we are coming from Jerusalem to here, like I was telling about my mom's way of thinking. Yeah, let's say if I have to go to the shuk, if I don't know, if I ask to someone else, like, and then if I just pass by, my mom will call me back. Tamchu, come here. You forgot something. I said, what? You forgot to say thank you. So these are the small things, right? We just neglect. But it's a very important thing in our life. So, yeah, sometimes we just take it guarantee, right? And we are more of like, what do you call it? The stereotype. I know everything, but it's very hard to practice it. So just in front of the Tel Aviv, like there's an ocean, right? So I was telling to the David's friend, Mary, look, Mary, the Buddha, what he said was like, your mind should be like the ocean. Outside, torment, sea wave, but deep down, so calm. Like the same way outside, no matter lots of things is happening, but your mind should be cool and settle down. Peace. So these are the small things sometimes like you forget. And the people, they let you to think it.
And you practice that in specific times, or you mention yourself throughout the day, or how do you interconnect between practice and living, and how do you make living a practice?
True. Some of the people, what do they see the Buddha's teaching as? The law of nature. Law of nature means how to lead a life. And some, the scientists now these days, they are showing lots of interest in the Buddhism, and they are doing lots of research. And they're called Buddhism as a science of mind. And those people who are working for the spiritual path, who want to attain enlightenment, for them, they call it the spiritual path to enlightenment. For some, law of nature. For some, science of mind. For some, path to enlightenment. So it depends upon how you perceive it.
The perspective of
your own perception, how you take it. So like me, like now, being a monk, trying to put into practice all the time, like think like the Gandhiji, what he said was like think globally, act locally, right? Yeah. So like I'm a monk, I should walk. Not like that. Like trying to be down to earth. Try to be, let's say, like simple.
A good person.
Yeah, a good person.
A good human being.
A good human being. So trying to put into practice all these things. Yeah, the law of nature that I told you, and also the spiritual path, the things that I've taken commitment from His Holiness, that I will do the prayers, this and that, like that, keeping these things in mind and doing it.
So you talk a lot about His Holiness or the Dalai Lama. What is the nature of your relationship with him? What could you tell about being close to him, or how is that?
Dalai Lama is our beacon of light. And he's the spiritual and the temporal leader of Tibet. Now from the 2001, he gave all of the power, temporal, the power to our Tibetan president. Now he's a spiritual leader. So he's our hope for the Tibetan cause, and he's our life, and he's our breathing, like that. So he's very important figure to us.
Because in his present is bringing something that you can see, that you can perceive, that you can...
True. He's a kind of like a soothing balm. Like when you have got a pain, just put on it, you get to relax. Right. Like the same way, right now, His Holiness the Dalai Lama is in South India. Why? Because at present in Dharmsala, it's too cold In South India, it's warm. So there are lots of old people who can't travel, and there are lots of sick people who can't travel all the way to Dharamsala. So His Holiness went down to Karnataka in South India. And now all these old people and all these sick people who can't go to Dharamsala, they are getting an opportunity to see His Holiness. And when I saw the interview, and they were saying, "Oh, now I saw the Dalai Lama. I got the blessing of Dalai Lama. Now I can die today itself. Like, I don't mind," right? So, like the same way, he's a beacon of the hope, and also a soothing balm. So lots of Tibetan people, though they are living in Tibet, like they can't physically, they come over here. They can't come over here, but mentally all the time with His Holiness. Yes. So it's very important for us.
How did he affect you personally? And
Yes, let's say, first of all, he's our spiritual leader, and we see him as a manifestation of the Lord of Compassion, Avalokiteshvara. And what we believe is he's an embodiment of Buddha's compassion. So he keeps on telling us, like, I'm just a simple Buddhist monk. When I can do it, why you can't? Well, no, why can't you? So when I can do it, why can't you? So only thing is you need a little effort, right? So he's just down
giving
to earth.
you example.
Yes, try to develop an aspiration for us. So otherwise, what we might think that, he's a manifestation of Avalokiteshvara, he's a very special, that's why he can do it. We can't do it. But to uplift the mind and to motivate the people's mind, he keeps on saying, I'm just a simple Buddhist monk. When I can do it, why can't you? So only thing is you need to show little effort and you need to spend little time on it. And His Holiness, though, keeps on saying, even though I'm 82 years, now he's 90 years old. Even though I'm 90 years of age, still I'm studying, still I'm practicing, still I'm reading. So we keep on thinking, and for all of his life, like at the age of 2, he was founded as a reincarnation of his predecessor, 13th Dalai Lama. Then at the age of 4, he became a monk, separated from his parents. At the age of 16, he was given full responsibility of the Tibet, the spiritual and temporal little both. Then at the age of 24, he lost his country. He has to flee. He has to left the Tibet to India. Now it's almost like 65 years that he's been living in exile. So if you think very carefully, like for all of his life, he has given his life to the Tibetan cause. Yes.
You talked about these 65 years, and time is moving forward, and I think we are, as a society, as human race, I think we are changing rapidly nowadays because the integration with technology and the way things are changing.
True.
And we had a small talk about it, like new students coming. What's the difference between the new, generation and the more old generation? And I think every generation, Socrates says, these kids nowadays, they don't have any nature, they don't have any values, they don't have any ability to learn. And he said it 3,000 years ago. So I think every generation says it. But still today, I can see, as an educator and as a teacher, I can see small differences. And I wonder what's your thought about it and what the Buddhist conception of that.
So the Buddha, he taught about the impermanence, right? And also, His Holiness the Dalai Lama has written lots of books. And the first time when he decided to have a dialogue with a scientist, And some of his friends told him like not to have a dialogue with the scientists. Why? Because they are the killer of the religion. And his honest thought, science are the one, like they are looking for the fact. And they don't believe in the dogmatic. Like the same way, the Buddha, what he said was like, dear fellow Sanghas, don't follow me ignorantly, blindly by saying that I'm a great teacher, like the great learned. Like the same way, analyze on my teaching. So if it's helping you, practice it. Otherwise, forget it. So it clearly shows that it's not a dogmatic. It has something to do with a fact. So that's why his honest keeps on saying, now be a 21st century Buddhist practitioner. 21st century Buddhist practitioner means develop a faith with the help of wisdom. And he says, blind faith is now outdated. So like the same way, like His Holiness the Dalai Lama, when he started talking with a scientist. So as I've told you earlier, cosmology, neurology, quantum physics, modern psychology. So one of the Buddhist master, he has written a book called Abhidhammakosha. In English, it's translated as The Treasure of Knowledge. So in that one, it's more like metaphysics. So he has stated about the shape of the earth, distance between the moon and the sun, and all these things. And he only says, the scientist has proved us wrong. And we shouldn't be attached. What our Buddhist master said, right? You should now forget it. Right? If someone like contradicts you and prove it wrong, you have to accept it. And also at the same time, he's only said, but this won't affect for the path to enlightenment. By not knowing the distance between earth and moon, it's not going to like make an obstacle to attain enlightenment. If the science prove wrong about the law of the nature, law of impermanence, compassion, kindness, then emptiness, then we should be a little bit regretted. We should be a little bit cautious, right? So far, like the teachings of Buddha, like talking about the fact. So no matter, it will go like, even at the end of the earth, still like fact is a fact, right? Nothing can be changed. But with the science, first, whether bone is broken or not, you feel it. Then came the X-ray. Then came the ultrasound. Then came the MRI. Then came the scan, CT scan. Then came MRIF. Like the same way, as the technology started improving and improving, you discover new things, right? So in the beginning, what do they say is atom is the smallest particle. Then they say atom is not the smallest particle, it's the electron and proton. Oh, no, not the electron and proton. You can further divide it like the quarks and all these things. But the Buddha's teaching, the law of nature, like let's say the compassion, kindness, there's no change. But the things which the scientist has proved on the metaphysical, we have to let go. That's his only says.
But
that's why his only has written a book called Ancient Wisdom, Modern World.
And although the truth is there, I think bringing people to acknowledge this truth, the path into acknowledgement became maybe bigger in the sense of people are much more addicted in our days. You talk about going to the States and then, this epidemic of painkillers, epidemic of drugs, epidemic of, just social networking, TV, I don't know, president and diplomats and politicians that it's all so there, so present. Ignorance, we talk about, knowledge, awareness, and then the enemy of that is ignorance. So ignorance become so big. So
True. As for the last time when I went to the New Mexico Albuquerque, so I went to a church in that one, the father during the service, he was saying, that demon is forcing us not to do the good things. That demon is forcing us to do the bad things like that. So I was just thinking like, who's the agent, the demon?
Who's the demon? Show me the demon.
Then almost like after a week, I just comes to realize that in the Buddhism, what do we say is like inner enemy and outer enemy. The outer enemy, it's more of like the human beings. But the inner enemy is more of like ignorance, anger, hatred, the three delusions. So what do we say is like, as for the outer enemy, you can just avoid them. But the inner enemy follows everywhere like the shadows. Like I just came from Ddharamsala. So the people that I don't like, I've left Ddharamsala over there. But my ignorance, anger, the jealousy, but it's still with me coming over here. Then also... that you mentioned about the substance and all these things, the science, what it says is the mind is a derivative of a brain. And when the brain dies, the mind dies. So the unhappiness that we are having, the like anger, anxiety, all these things. So the science, they look at it from a substance point of view. Oh, he's having his dopamine has decreased, serotonin has decreased, and you should take the medicine, this medicine, that medicine. So we are not denying that the medicine doesn't help. Medicine helps,
but it helps the symptom.
But for a short period of time, right? So the suffering, they let's say now these days the people, they are talking about the marijuana, the psychedelic, all these things. It helps. But we are not arguing that it doesn't help, but for a short period of time. But the important thing is, one to know is when to stop it, right? So regarding the suffering, the Buddha, what he mentioned about, as for me, I used to think that the suffering is only one. But after studying the Four Noble Truths, I came to realize there are three different types of suffering. Suffering of change, suffering of condition. Suffering of suffering is more of physical pain, like when you have having a pain on your hand and someone hit on the same thing, I got more suffering. But the suffering of change, it's more of pleasure turning into suffering. So the same way, this mind is a non-material, but the body is material. In the ultimate, mental problem has to solve by the mental, right? Not by the non-material. Non-material helps for a time period. Then, if we keep on resorting, if we keep on taking a kind of a help from the medication, then for the long run, it becomes an addiction. Once it becomes an addiction, then, and also more of it's a chemical substance, there should be a side effect on your body. And when it helps to something, it harms to something. So, in the long run, it's not good. So, yes, it's good. Then, once you get cured, stop it. Otherwise, resorting on it, living on it. So the doctors, they keep on telling, eat food. Otherwise, medicine will become a food. Right? So, in the end, the ADHD, if I'm not wrong, a few years back, I read an article written by the BBC. It says there's no such kind of ADHD, right?
No ADHD.
No ADHD.
For kids, not as well?
Yeah.
Okay.
But the thing is but it's very strange. Why? Because we consider, let's say, autistic children, autistic people, they can't concentrate. But on the things that they like, they will give 150% concentration. And there were some stories, it's a fact, one autistic guy, he was taken on the helicopter and later on he write ditto painting of it. Right? So we get distracted now these days. Earlier times, we don't have mobile, right? And we have one telephone in home and only one channel, TV on that too, a black and white. Now these days, like so many movies, right? So many channel. You don't know which one to watch. Huh? And in the end, you realize that you haven't watched completely. As long as you are not in the theater or in the movie hall. In the movie hall, they will play only one movie. But in your room, Netflix, LineGate, YouTube, all these things. You keep on changing the channel. And the mobile, social media, I said, hi. Now we keep on waiting for the response. Checking on mobile. So lots of distractions. Earlier, they can play, come, eat, sleep. That's it. Now these days, friends, social media, all these things.
I think because it's so seductive, this present of ours and those terms around us, like you say, suffering from change, you without even notice. Like my kids, they didn't get phones until a very late period of time. Just now, you met my eldest, Itamar, and he just got the phone, a year ago, something like that. He was the last one from all of his kind to get a phone, and he got the phone, and he's an intelligent boy. He's aware of things. He knows it. But he got the phone, and immediately, he's getting sucked into it.
True.
The seductive force of our present environment is so hard. It's so, it's tough. And then you get drifted by it into deep sea. So
True.
If you swim next to the beach, you can always see the beach. Okay, I can come back, maybe I have a present of somebody. But if you get drifted into the deep waters and it's seductive because it's the dopamine, it's so cheap, right?
It's like a sugar drug.
Yeah, exactly. And then what is your perception about it? Like how can we solve it as a society?
It's a very strange word because like the college where I'm working, sometimes with the Department of Religion, they organize summer immersion program, winter immersion program for the school kids. And the parents, they will call us, oh, can you just collect the phones from the students?
Can you fix it?
So I need to tell to the students that look, mobile itself is not a bad thing. Like the lion's fang, the teeth, the lion's fang, it's not meant to build for the kill. So when they pick up their own child, the cubs, they pick up very gently. Like the same way, if you guys use the mobile for the Google, Wikipedia, even if there's like 24 hours, we will give you for 25 hours.
Yeah.
But since you don't know how to use it, like YouTube and PUBG game and all this kind of stuff, so that's why they're telling you to not to use it.
Limitation.
Yeah. So it depends upon one's individual, how you use it. Right. So I think the parents, one time when I was in the States, like one of my friends, my sister's friend asked me, when is the right time to teach the religion to the children? And I said, like, first thing first, parents, they are the teacher. Don't teach what the religion is. They will copy from you. Right? They will copy from you. First, if you do the prayer, then the children, they will think that, oh, my parents, they are doing a prayer. I should also do it. Right for the same way, the parents, they themselves, they are after the mobile phone, laptop, and all these things. And they don't have a time to tell to the children. And when the children, they are playing it, and we say, don't do it, then it becomes like a drunkard father telling to a son, don't drink it. So if the fathers is not drinking, then it's important. Then you can advise to your own children without kind of like guilt, right? So if you don't use the mobile phone while we gather at the home, then if we read the books, children will read the book too. So the thing is like, it's important to show how to spend a time by the parents. So yeah, if the parents keep on playing the mobile, the children, they will keep playing the mobile too. Then one thing you mentioned about the suffering and anger, all these things. The science, what do they say is human nature is aggressive, right? Now the question is, and also now these days, youngsters, they become more aggressive. Anger, hatred, jealousy, right? So all these things we learn from the games, video games. So video games, now it depends upon the children. What kind of games are you playing? What kinds of movie are you watching? Right? Like that. And His Holiness the Dalai Lama keeps on saying was the human nature is not an aggressive, it's love and compassion. Now it's the duty, it's the role model of the parents to teach to the children how to be compassionate, how to be kindness by putting into practice rather than staying in a house, like going to the old age home, hospital, especially to the, let's say, the underprivileged people's house, and let them know that how privileged they are. So I do the same thing in India, Ddharamsala. So deliberately I take to the slum areas to our children. Then afterwards, I used to ask them, what is happiness? To make them realize that how fortunate they are, how privileged they are, like that.
Okay, I think we need to end. Maybe for last words, something that you wish for us Israelis.
Important is, as His Holiness was asked, if you want to summarize the whole teachings of the Buddha into one single sentence, what would it be? His Holiness said, if you can help, help. If you can't help, at least restrain from harming. And one of the Buddha's sponsor, the friend, in the end, when they depart from each other, and his friend asked him, can you just give me one advice? And the Buddha said, never expect. And be a master of your own. So most of us, what do we think? The Buddha was asked, like his disciple asked him, like, let's move from, let's say, from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. And the Buddha asked, like, why? Oh, the Tel Aviv people, they are telling us a bad thing about us. And the Buddha asked, like, what's the guarantee by going to Jerusalem people will tell a good thing about you? And if the Tel Aviv people will say a good thing about you, will you be happy? And they say yes. Oh, now your happiness and suffering depends upon the other people, not on yourself. So be your own master. That's what the Buddha said. So we should try to help as much as we can. If we can't help, at least restrain from harming. And develop a good warm heart and compassion heart and have a meaningful life.
גיישה דומצ'או.
תודה רבה.
תודה רבה.